I'm Russell Hill, the host of WTF, and that is What the Fix Stops to all of you out there today. And I'm joined today by...
Hello, everyone. I'm Charity, the co-host here, and we're excited. We have Christopher Singleton, the managing partner at Mike Terry Chevrolet. Chris, welcome to the show.
Thank you guys so much for having me. Really excited to be here.
Yeah.
Good. Well, can you introduce yourself to our audience and tell everybody a little bit about what you do?
My name is Chris Singleton, and I'm the managing partner at Mike Terry Chevrolet. And I've been in the business going on close to 20 years since right out of high school. So the car business is a business that I love, and I'm just happy to be here joining with you guys to talk about one of the most important aspects of a dealership, which is fixed ops.
I love it.
Yeah, that's great. Well, you worked your way up in the business, and will you tell us a little bit how you did it, and tell us about watching and learning how other people did their jobs helped you learn about the business?
Yeah, so I started in the business. I washed cars briefly, and then I sold cars and worked my way up from there all the way up to having ownership in a dealership. And starting from selling cars and then working my way up, I think one of the biggest transitions that I made was from general sales manager to general manager. And I knew nothing about fixed ops. I knew nothing about what an effective labor rate was or just any of the terms. So what I did was, when my service manager got to the dealership at about 6:30 each morning, as a general sales manager, I joined her, went to the back, looked at everything from what is this terminology, how does this work, looked at how they manage their team, and then learned all of the terminology and how the dealership was this symbiotic relationship and how it all worked together. Then I was fortunate enough to go to NADA school and graduate from NADA. And then I joined the Mike Terry Auto Group as the COO. So effectively we had 7 dealerships at the time. And then last July, I was able to buy into one of the single point stores and be able to now be an owner. So it's definitely been a journey, a little bit different than the traditional path, but I've enjoyed it.
What an honor. I got to tell you, so this is my 40th year. I started selling in 1985. I grew up on the variable side. I didn't understand, but I worked. Part of what I learned early on was working the service drive and getting to know the technicians and advisors. And it's still all about relationships and supporting the guest. And my biggest transition was from GSM to GM as well. Now, I did not go to NADA Academy, but I didn't understand a lot of that either. But I made sure I understood enough, and then I hired somebody that knew exactly what needed to get done. So that was really, really helpful. Yeah. Anyway, that's one.
Yeah. Well, we like to ask people how they reached their success, and what do you attribute yours to? Do you attribute it to luck or the people you know, or is it born from trauma?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I think there's a combination of all of those things. Some of success is about being in the right place at the right time. I know some people who obtained dealerships around COVID times, and some of the parameters were much different. I know some people who were one of the only people involved in a pilot program, and that's how they got their start. So I think that some of it is being in the right time. One of my favorite definitions of luck is when preparation meets opportunity.
Yes.
So we all have the opportunity to be lucky at some point, if you will, but are you prepared when the opportunity arises? So there's some of that. I also always had a tenacity to learn more. Even to this day, I read probably 2 books a month. I have a word of the day to expatiate my vocabulary. I'm subscribed to Automotive news and a lot of the things. So I'm just a nerd, if you will, and I've always had a veracity and an insatiable appetite to learn and get better and perfect my craft. So I would say a little bit of being in the right place at the right time. Some of the people that you meet along the way, really learning, growing, and developing, honing your craft, and always operating in integrity would probably be the things that led me to where I'm at.
That's I have an acronym for luck, and that's laboring under correct knowledge. Personally, I don't believe in coincidence, chance, or luck. I believe you reap what you sow, and one can construe that to be to coincide or a coincidence of being in the right place at the right time. But that would be a universal, spiritual, whatever type of thing you want to call it. Now, I'm a voracious reader too. I believe that all true servant leaders are readers, but I don't believe that all readers are leaders. Not necessarily. It depends on what they want and what they focus on. But I do know that new input dictates new output. So if you don't want to keep getting the same result, hence the definition of sanity, then you have to input new information to get a new output. Or we know 30 days from now, especially when somebody gets the same thing month in, month out, year after year, is because they're not inputting any new information. Now, there was a time in my life where I didn't really care about that, even in this career. And I had some chemical and alcohol challenges, and my priorities weren't in the right place. And I'm coming up, December 1st, be 31 years clean and sober, which I don't mind talking about. As a matter of fact, I'm going to go ahead and say this out loud. I'm writing a memoir right now, and Charity is my ghostwriter because she knows she's good at that. I got the story, but I don't know how to make it all work, but she certainly does. And I'm wondering, and I believe this is true for most people, Chris, that whether it's that or something else, that things stop working, or we're in a place where we're doing things that aren't yielding what we want it to yield. And we get to some crossroad where it says, you know what, this is not working. The adversity creates an opportunity to make some significant changes in your life. Did you have one of those too, that you would feel comfortable sharing, or has it just been all smooth gravy train up until now, which I doubt?
No, definitely hasn't been all smooth gravy. I think I would say that I never struggled with anything like substance abuse or any of those things. I had a lot of unmitigated childhood trauma that, things like I mentioned a little bit earlier, which was imposter syndrome, not knowing who I was. I was very mercurial and capricious in my temperament. So if I sold a car, or if we had a good day at the dealership, I was on cloud nine. If we didn't, or I didn't sell a car for a while, then my spirit, my mentality, everything was just down in the dumps. So I really had conditional confidence. So my confidence waned based upon my most immediate result. So I think practicing emotional regulation and getting to a place to where, you are good enough. You don't have to drive a certain car or wear a certain suit. So just feeling like I was good enough and dealing with unmitigated childhood traumas, as well as learning emotional regulation to not live and die by the car business can be a what have you done for me lately kind of business. So understanding that my worth wasn't indicative of just my most recent performance, whether it was the last month or the last day. And that I think that there's a lot of opportunities for mental health checks for people in the car business, because it's such a high pressure, results driven business that very few people talk about the mental health impacts that it has on your family, your friends, your loved ones, your relationships. And I suffered in different areas regarding personal relationships, family, things like that. And so I think that if I would have been able to mitigate some of that earlier, then my sailing would have been much, much smoother.
I want to hone in on that just for a second. I know we got a bunch of questions too. So what I realized because of childhood trauma that I had, what I realized, and particularly the emotional side of things, what I understood was for a long time it wasn't my fault. You see, Chris, I was I suffered from terminal uniqueness. You don't really understand. And now I understand that everything I have is a direct result of all the choices, the things that I say or do. There's consequences for those. And I also realized in which I'm still on and will be forever, this recovery process, is that the drugs and alcohol were never my problem. They were the symptoms. The problem was how I thought. how I processed, and what I thought that suffering, that persona of what people thought about me and how I dressed. And a lot of people in the car business go through that. And you had mentioned that, but what was the tipping point where that wasn't working for you and you needed to make some changes?
I think the tipping point was I was at a place where I had made some of the most money that I ever made in my life, and I was the least happy. And you think about people like Robin Williams and these actors that have tons of money, but they end up committing suicide, all of those things. So for me, I knew that I had to redirect my focus. Also realized that I took so much pride in being the number one consumer. And for the amount of money that I'd made in my life and in my career, I didn't have a lot of things to show for it aside from my material possessions. So I realized that I put those, once you bought all the cars and you have the clothes and all those, but you have no personal relationships, it's a very sobering thought to realize, man, I thought that once I made this amount of money, I'd be happy, or I bought this Bentley or this Aston Martin, or I had this, then I would be happy. And with each accomplishment, there's almost this concomitant sadness that's associated with it, because you realize, hey, I've reached this new pinnacle and I have no one there to share it all with, be it family, friends, close relationships, all of that. So then you begin to reprioritize and realize, well, what's really important to me in life? I can have, like the aphorism that says, what good is it for a man to gain the entire world and lose his soul? So what I realized is that I had a big house, I'm traveling, I have all these cars, but when I come home, not having any type of substantiated relationships, I knew that I had to change the trajectory because I was going to continue down this empty path. So I started to do the work. I went to counseling, therapy, got to the root of some things, and I was able to learn who I really am.
And now are you happy?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, good.
Much.
Yeah, it's amazing that all those things to fill this insatiable hole that we thought that it would produce for us. Yeah. And actually, the larger it got, the more we consumed and the more sadness there was, because it's an inside job that manifests itself out, not the other way around. And you learned that lesson. And I got to tell you, I did too. And unfortunately, most people do not, unfortunately. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. I know that was a personal thing for you.
Oh, yeah, no, it's I want to be able to share those things with the world, because many people don't see the ugly side of success, and being able to articulate, hey, with success can come the greatest sadness that you ever experienced, because it's like running to the top of a mountain and you're doing your Rocky dance and you're celebrating, and then you look around and there's nobody there to celebrate. So then you jump off of that mountain, or you climb down from that mountain, then you climb a bigger mountain. You're like, well, I know I'm gonna. And you can continue on that cycle and get into the top and realize there's nobody there to celebrate. So for me, I learned that it's more important to be more rich in relationships. You don't have to sacrifice one for the other, but actually having balance. And I think that's something that people in the car business struggle with.
Balance. Good. Charity.
That makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense. Well, and I'm going to ask you this, and I kind of know the answer, but we'll open the door. Is how you're perceived by others really important to your effectiveness as a leader?
Good question.
Yeah. I think that there's an aspect of it that is. You have to have a certain level of self-esteem, self-respect. You have to understand that sometimes leadership can be a bit of a thankless job. I wouldn't perpetuate the ideology of just going around the world and not being conscious of how you impact others or how you're perceived by others. But what I will say is you have to have a mix of self-assurance and being and self-validation, as well as other people's validation. So I would say maybe it's 85-15, because if someone perceives you in this way, and it's a very prodigious thought, so there's a lot of people that feel that way, you may want to look in the mirror and see if there's some truth to it, or at least truth to how you're impacting others. So I think that it's the real answer, that there's a combination, and everybody has to figure out what that combination is for them. I don't perpetuate being a jerk and going around and saying I don't care what anybody thinks, but I also think that you shouldn't live by what everybody thinks. And I'll close with this life aphorism. It says, there was a book that I read, and it said, if you live by the compliment, then you'll die by the criticism. So understanding that if you live by the compliment, you'll die by the criticism. So where's your baseline? Where's your self-esteem? Where does it, hey, I'm not going to let it dip below here no matter what the perception is. But don't live by the compliment, because you could die by the, by the reprimand or by the criticism.
Yeah, that balance is obviously very, very important. And in our business, unfortunately, people perceive you based upon certain things. But then when you have a level of balance and it doesn't go to the nth degree, it sends a completely different message. I agree with you. Unfortunately, people do look and see how you're dressed and and see do you interact with people really well, and are you humble and kind, or are you an asshole? Basically. And there's a lot of those out there too. And some of them don't care. And it's unfortunate because they're that way all the time. Maybe nobody stood up to them. I don't really know. Balance, just what you said.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I have to say, Chris, you have one of the most extensive vocabularies I think we've heard of anyone on the show.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Tell us a little bit how soft skills are important to leadership.
And soft skills, they're the most important. EQ will get you much further in life than IQ, because you don't want your message. So even if you have the best content, if you're the smartest guy in the world, things can get lost in the delivery. So you have to be able to have the soft skills in order to be able to connect with people, because nobody can even hear what you say. You can't pour into a cup that has a lid on it. So you have to be able to learn how to open people's lid, and that is all about understanding the soft skills such as empathy, emotional intelligence, compassion. What are the different forms of empathy? Knowing when to lead, but also knowing when to listen, and really understanding your people and the psychology of what it is that makes them tick. Not to be used as manipulation, but to be used as a mechanism to be able to connect with your people. So soft skills are the most important things that you can learn as a leader, because if nobody's listening, then you can have the best information in the world. And
Right.
So how did you learn those soft skills?
Man, through trial and error. To the people that I managed 15 years ago, I apologize. Yeah. And I talk about this often, is that being a leader is all about there's an element of selflessness that you have to have. And Russell, you can probably attest to this. One of the toughest transitions for me, going from a general sales manager to a general manager, was because as a general sales manager, I was still desking deals. I always seen my name at the top, and I knew how much gross I put up, and I beat all the other managers. And there was still I really got this rush and this satisfaction from seeing my name at the top of the board. Well, Absolutely. As a general manager, there's an aphorism that says, if it rains outside, it's your fault. So it's a thankless job, and you're graded on the entire dealership, and you don't get to see your name in the big lights. In fact, you're always putting your other people, the managers, the fixed ops director, whoever, you're putting their name in lights. So it requires an element of emotional intelligence to be able to understand who you really and truly are without your name being in lights. So the higher up you go, the less credit that you actually get. And that's one of the toughest transitions. But when you learn that, now you can connect with your people, you can edify them, you can build them up, and now you build really, really strong teams.
Yeah, I would have to say 15 years ago, I was, I didn't really maybe not, a little longer than that. I didn't understand some of the things I understand now. It's amazing how until you get to a certain place. If you're open and if you're humble and if you're kind, it's not all about me. It's not all about you, where your name is on the board. And I started learning that when that very transition happened for me. It's like my name wasn't all over the board. It was more of a team thing. And I understood managing. Sometimes people think it's the same thing as leadership, and it is not. Managing is getting up under, pushing people and getting them to do something, et cetera, the right way. And true leadership, instead of lighting a fire underneath, is lighting a fire inside. And
Absolutely.
yeah.
And there's a book called The 5 Levels of Leadership by John Maxwell. And one of the quotes that always stuck with me, they said, people follow a manager because they have to, but people follow a leader because they want to.
Powerful.
And so understanding the difference between the first level of leadership is position leadership. So, hey, I'm a manager. You have to listen to what I say. That's position leadership. Well, a step above that is permission leadership. And that's where people give you their permission for them to be led by you. So understanding the different levels of leadership and taking true inventory to see, where am I operating? Are they just following me just because of my title? Or are they following me? Have they given me their permission for me to lead them because of who I am, what I represent, and the way that I've connected with them?
And it damn sure doesn't happen overnight. It's a process. It is a learning process, and I've made a lot of mistakes. And you know what? I don't really live in the regret part, because the mistakes I learned made me helped mold who I am today. So without that adversity and those mistakes, I wouldn't be where I'm at today. And apparently you've made a lot of those adjustments in your life.
Absolutely.
Let me tell you about a partner that's actually helping dealers get ahead. Global Dealer Solutions. If you've been wondering how to use AI the right way in your dealership, especially on the fixed side, these are the people to call. Their team gets it. Not just the tech, but the real challenges that dealerships face every day. We're talking about conversational AI that doesn't just respond, it converts. It books appointments, follows up with service leads, even answers customer questions with actual relevance. It's not replacing your team, it's making sure your team can focus on what matters most, closing ROs and building relationships. But GDS isn't just about AI. They train your staff, drive traffic, and tighten up processes so your results stick long after the tool is turned on. And everything they do is built around one goal: growth that is real. If you want more service traffic, better follow-up, and a partner that's always a step ahead, check them out. Visit gdsdealers.com, follow them on LinkedIn at gdsdealers, or just shoot them a message and ask, what would you do with my store? And see what they come back with. Global Dealer Solutions, process-driven, people first, always on it. Well, how do you learn that, Chris? How do you learn, how to be a better leader and how to get people to follow you because of what you represent rather than because you're a manager? How do you learn those skills?
The way that you learn them is, the first thing you have to do is take true inventory of where you are now. When you type anything into the navigation system, say you want to go to California or Missouri, wherever, when you type an address in the navigation system, the first question that it asks you is, do you want to navigate from your current location? Do you want to use your current location? So the first step is understanding where you really and truly are right now on your leadership journey, your emotional intelligence journey. And that comes from, taking an inventory with people, asking them, how you're impacting them. Therapy, counseling, reading, all of those things are important to take a real look in the mirror. And then I would say the next biggest step is making actionable steps. Monitoring your progress in certain aspects. For me, it was I practiced something called conscious deprivation. So if I felt like that I got all of that I was overly invested in my suits, and I had to be wear the brightest, most colorful suit, then I consciously deprived myself of that and said, hey, I'm only going to wear these colors, the most black, gray, just the standard things. And I consciously deprived myself of that. If it was my car, because I have, I've had a lot of exotic cars, I would consciously leave that one parked and spend an entire week and only drive my demo from the dealership, and almost weaning myself off of these things that I knew impacted how I was impacting others, or that I may have gotten my self-esteem from. And once you do that enough and you have the discipline to do that, you'll eventually realize, man, who I am on the inside is that's what speaks to people whenever I come into the room, not the car I drive or the suit or anything existentially.
Right. And those things could probably build some resentments as well with your team. If they're seeing you show up in like a 3-piece purple suit and a Ferrari, they're probably, getting a little bitter behind the scenes about that.
100%. That is very, very true. Right now, I'm in a small town called Refugio, Texas. It's only about 2,500 people that live in the town. And my business partner asked me one of the times when we were going to all of these different places, the median income is $20,000, $25,000, a month. And what I realized was he would always ask me, well, why do you have to have on every piece of jewelry, wear the 3-piece suit, and do all of that? And it was because a big part of me was just trying to prove that, hey, I'm here, I'm at this status, I am worthy. And what I realized is that it really ostracizes you from the very people that you want to connect with. So it ostracizes you from the team. It ostracizes you from the customer base. So I was so afraid of being average, and I was so afraid of just being another cog in the wheel. But when I realized that, one of my guys and I, we have a saying that it's not on you, it's in you. So that's a reminder that existential validation it is not what you should seek. It's really in you. So you're exactly right. I had to learn that the hard way. And then I bought my first pair of Cole Haans. I was like, man, these things are really comfortable. I started wearing golf shirts, and there's these fishing shirts that have like this little netting in there that's just super comfortable, breathable. And I was like, man, I've been missing out on this for my entire career. So,
Yes.
Yeah, I went through that myself. As a matter of fact, I have an acronym for status because I really didn't, and still too arrogant to understand success, because it was all about what I wanted people to perceive, and I didn't even know who the hell I was.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, let's talk. And you mentioned emotional regulation a little bit, but tell us specifically, how does leading with a cool head in tension-filled situations help you develop great leadership?
Yeah, great question.
Yeah, that's a really, really good question. Stress management is so important because one of the questions that I ask my team or my leaders is I ask them, are you going to be a thermostat or a thermometer? And I asked them what the difference in between the two is. And after they kind of fumbled around, what I was sharing with them is that a thermostat, a thermometer, there's a word called mercurial. So mercurial, the base word is mercury. And mercury rises and falls in a thermometer based upon whatever the temperature in the room is. Mercury will rise or fall. A thermostat, though, is a person that sets the temperature in the room.
That's right.
So understanding that as a leader, you are the thermostat. So if you're all over the place, have this unmitigated stress that you exude, then now you're going to, when you study psychology and biology, we have mirror neurons. So the people who we're close to, our spouse, these different people, those mirror neurons, they feed off of our, energy, and people can sense whether it's your tonality, your voice inflection, your body language, all of those things activate those mirror neurons, and your team is going to essentially adopt whatever your mentality is. So when you understand that you're the barometer, you're the thermostat, now you have to realize how important it is and how you can impact your team by not maintaining a cool head. So whether you have to take a walk, whatever your de-stress mechanism is, you have to understand that it's so much more at stake than just you and your immediate temperament. And when you understand that there's other people's paychecks on the line, there's other people's mental fortitude on the line, there's other people's psyche on the line, then you're more conscious of how you impact others. So when you look at it that way, it's, man, if I'm having a bad day, let me go for a walk, let me take an extended lunch, let my team not see me sweat, so that way I can think objectively, come up with a good strategic game plan, but also I can keep my team mentally and emotionally regulated.
Great
Wow.
advice. Great
Yeah.
advice.
It
So-
is great advice.
Would you say it's easy or not to regulate your emotions? And what advice would you give to someone who struggles with it?
Yeah, so it's definitely easier not to regulate your emotions. It's easy to just, hey, when something impacts you, you just react to it. But learning to respond versus react. So understanding, asking yourself after a situation happens, am I responding or am I reacting to it is one of the things. Another thing is understanding that anger is a secondary emotion. So
That's
if you
right.
feel angry or if you feel elevated, then understand that's a secondary emotion. So being able to address the base emotion of the situation. When you get angry, is it because you're hurt or you felt unseen or you felt unheard or you felt like someone didn't listen to you? So understanding what your base emotion under the anger or under the stress is. Even stress is a secondary emotion. So being able to really address those base emotions and asking yourself that is really, really important. So emotional regulation is about asking yourself the right questions. And then also, lastly, I would say understanding emotional attribution. So one of the things I teach is emotional attribution. And what that means simply is, well, I'll use a personal example. If you were coming home, Russell, and your wife was, she had a plate in the microwave for you. It was a long day at the office. Well, when you come home and your plate isn't as warm as you would like to, and it makes you really, really upset. Emotional attribution is understanding, well, how much of my temperament is coming from this not being as warm as I would like, or am I really upset because I stepped my toe on my way to work this morning? We didn't sell any cars. Fixed ops production has been down all month, and there was a bunch of traffic on the way home, and I haven't eaten since 12 o'clock. So,
Well,
go ahead.
no, I was going to say, and the catalyst is it's not hot enough. The food's not hot enough, and I go off the deep end. Well, I don't do that anymore, but I used to. But boy, when you react to those emotional states, you're wrong every time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So take a moment, and if you feel yourself getting to a really elevated state, take a moment and say and ask yourself and really do an inventory and see, hey, where is this emotion coming from? That way you can attribute the proper amount of emotion towards each situation, and then to your wife or your spouse or your team, you're able to only attribute the proper emotion, the right amount of emotion to that. A lot of times we're carrying around a lot of residual feelings and emotions from earlier in the day, earlier in the week, earlier in the month, and it explodes on one innocent person or your team who didn't do anything to you. So being able to emotionally attribute properly. And I'll close with this. Warren Buffett has a saying that tell them to go to AT double hockey sticks tomorrow. And the whole premise is if you still feel the same way about it tomorrow, then you can go back and address certain things that may make you feel elevated. And a lot of times you've had time to gain some clarity.
Would you say that most of that time, at least my experience is, whatever I thought it should have been, or this or that, whatever it may be, what I realized was because my wife and I, we don't do any of that. We know that I'm the emotional one. She's not. She just retired after 33 years as a controller in dealership. So she's very analytical, right, and very matter of fact. And I'm the one that gets upset and cries at movies and all that kind of stuff. So I react off my emotions, right?
Yeah.
But when I get emotionally charged, she also knows that I don't think logically when I'm emotionally distraught. So so the things that you say, you could say it's water under the bridge later on down the road, but it's not. It's like sticks and stones may break your bones that we were taught as a kid. Well, exactly the opposite. Your bones heal. The emotional scars can last until you put them in proper place. So I don't react off that because it's really about me. It has nothing to do with somebody else. But I want to say you always or you never. And well, that's a huge mistake, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah. And understanding that people will, I owned a sales training company for about 5 years, and I heard something that really impacted me. And after 24 hours, people will forget 90% of what you say, but they'll remember 100% of how you made them feel. So
Absolutely.
being conscious of how you're impacting others and how you make them feel is just so important. And emotional regulation is a struggle every day. It's not a destination. There's a book called Take the Stairs that was written by Rory Vaden that said, it talks about emotional regulation, and it talks about a lot of things, and how you impact others is just really important when it comes to emotional regulation. And I'm not sure if enough leaders went to that, or if they done therapy. I think it would just make for a better workplace for sure.
I agree.
Yeah.
The thing is that my mentor told me a long time ago, it's like, Russell, are you willing to do the things that other people are not willing to do? So you can have and become the things that most people will never have and never become. And I struggle with that even to this day. I'm in rooms. I'm always learning and being in places where I can hear things. But the same challenges I had in 1985 when I first started selling cars, I hear about today. The same thing is going on. So the average person sold 10 back then in 1985, and it's 9.7 now. So what's and we have all this wonderful technology and stuff, like it's still a people to people. It's still a relationship thing, and it's like it's really important to keep learning and understanding that, and that most people love them where they're at, try to help them and elevate them. And if they don't want to move, maybe a seed was planted and somebody else later on picks it up, or the light goes off like it did with me and my mentor. But it's like, if the branches are bare, au contraire, don't go there, but try to lift them. They want something from you. If they approached you, they want something from Chris. If they're approaching you and trying to engage with you, they want to be led. They want to know they're part of something, and they're looking for your assistance. They may not be willing to take the risk or get on the edge of their comfort zone to go through some of the things that Chris went through to get where you're at now. But if they want it, it's available. But some people just are blamed. They're in the blame game, and it's unfortunate. But you got to take responsibility for where you're at and where you want to go.
Yeah, no, it's like the saying that says, everybody wants to go to heaven, but nobody wants to die.
Right.
And speaking of
True,
what Rory,
right?
yeah. So speaking of what Rory was saying, he the quote that I was alluding to earlier was, success is never owned, it's rented, and the rent is due every day. So emotional regulation, it's not a destination. Success, emotional regulation, none of those things are ever owned. It's rented, and the rent is due every day. So every day you have to actively practice these things.
Well said.
Yeah. Well, tell us about the 3 levels of empathy and how to lead with empathetic leadership.
Yeah, so the first level is cognitive empathy, which is I can understand how a person would think that way. The second level is emotional empathy, which is I can understand how somebody would feel that way. The third level and the deepest level is what's called compassionate empathy or empathic concern. And that can lean into proactivity. So that means that you're thinking about how something will impact your partner or your team prior to you even doing the action. So cognitive empathy, emotional empathy, and then compassionate empathy or empathic concern. So when you can operate in that third and deepest level of empathy, then you're thinking about how what you say and the actions that you do impact the totality of your team. So that's the space that you want to operate in as a leader, is proactivity, compassion, and understanding what your team may be going through. I'll give you an example of it. We're oftentimes, whenever you're having production conversations and you call a person in to talk to them about their performance, because those things are needed. One of the things that I've learned is that before you go right into performance metrics and this is where you're missing the boat and this is what you are doing, one of the things that I learned to do was to stop and just ask, hey, are you okay? I've noticed that your production has been a little bit off, but that is secondary concern. My first concern is, I know that you can do the job. You've been here X amount of time, and
Mhm.
this is indicative of how you usually operate. So I just wanted to check on you and see if you're okay. The amount of stories that I've gotten from just reframing my production conversation into checking on you personally, I found out that there was deaths in the family, a son that was admitted into the hospital for that was on suicide watch. I mean, the stories that I've gotten have been so crazy. And if you knew, there's a saying that if you knew better, you do better. Well, if
Yeah.
when you go into some of these production conversations and you only talk about production, you have no compassion, no empathy, you don't understand that empathic concern, you can go down a production conversation and then a person tells you, oh, sorry about that. I just had a death in the family, earlier this week. And you feel like a jerk,
Oh
less of a
yeah.
human being because you didn't even know that this person was going through that. So I think stopping and doing that, that's a part of emotional intelligence, is checking in on them personally. And then allowing that to kind of direct your reprimands or your conversations about production.
Makes
Great.
sense.
Great
Yeah.
point. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So I have a quote of yours, Chris.
Okay.
What got you here won't get you there.
Yeah.
How does one reach the next level in their career goals?
Yeah, man, one of my favorite quotes: "What got you here won't get you there."
She finds them. Let me tell you.
He
She'll
told
find
me,
them.
to be fair.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. Well, the reason why I say that is this. For instance, if you take the transition from finance to being a sales manager, finance managers can be, I'm not saying all of them are, but finance managers can be inherently selfish because it's all about what's my per copy, what are my numbers, how much money did I make. Oftentimes they are they are managing and leading people. Well, what's the next promotion from finance? It's oftentimes going to the desk or being a sales manager. So now you're put in a position to lead people. So you have to learn how to sell in this arena, and then you have to now understand and practice and flex a muscle that you haven't had to use as much, which is leadership, and compassion, connecting with people, all of those things. So when I say what gets you here won't get you there, it's about understanding what is going to be the skill set that's required to reach your next level. And again, taking a real inventory to see where am I at in that regard. If I want to be a general manager and I ultimately want to lead the entirety of the dealership, where am I at in my ability to be able to connect with people? So it's about learning as much as you can about the next position and then understanding what skills, talking to people who have been in that position that are really successful in that position and asking them, hey, what does an effective general manager look like? What does an effective owner look like? What does somebody effective in this role look like? Once you aggregate that information, then you can really look at yourself and see where you're at in regards to that. It takes a new skill set, or at least for you to be able to expound upon your current skill
That's
set,
right.
for you to reach the next level.
No doubt. I I took a salesperson who wore my team out off the floor, 30 car a month guy,
Mm-hmm.
selfish, self-seeking, and self-centered. Is all about me, myself, and I. Okay. And to put him in a management role when it's not about him, but it's about the collective team, he didn't do very well, and he made the decision he didn't want to do that after all. That he made more money on the floor than he did having. He didn't want to pay the price to learn how to get there.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. And that's something that's so common, transitioning from sales to management or whatever. It's like what got you here was producing. I was talking to one of my managers just the other day, and sometimes a manager, the emotional intelligence piece, they're still trying to prove themselves. So they are, oh, I'm going to take all the phone calls, or I'm going to do all of this. They're still like, they're telling all the war stories about what they used to do whenever they were selling cars, and then they're just kind of taking over and doing all of the things. Well, Warren Buffett said, I would rather have 1% of 100 people's efforts than 100% of my own, which means that
absolutely.
as a leader, you have to learn how to work through people, not just be able to do it all yourself. And what I was explaining to him was, hey, What got you here won't get you there. You got here because you were able to produce. So you trying to take over every phone call or trying to close every customer, trying to do it all yourself, that's what got you to be in here. Your production is what got you here. But
That's right.
what's going to get you there is learning how to work through people, learning how to lead people, hold
Yep.
people accountable, but still love on them, still teach them, and really be able to work through people. So that's a microcosm of what I mean when I say what gets you here won't get you there.
That is a tremendous skill set. I think a lot of us in the earth, it's like sometimes when I hear you speak, Chris, or some of the things that I say, it's not that I ever figured it out. I'm still figuring it out. But I have grown tremendously by walking through that and accepting the fact that, hey, at my age, there's a few things I do real well, but I can't do what Charity does. I need Charity because that's what she does well. I can't do that. And that's an important part of being an effective leader, don't you think, as well, Chris?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Don't be afraid to surround yourself with people that are better than you in certain specialties, because being a leader is not about having it all figured out. You don't have to be the best at everything. You just have to be able to lead the respective departments.
Yep.
You look at any of the successful companies, Steve Jobs, Bill Gates, they all hired people that were smarter than them, better than them in some particular aspect. But you have the secret sauce to being able to put it all together as like this homogeneous mixture and kind of make the entire thing run. And that's a skill set within itself.
Yeah. Well, we're running out of time, so I'm going to ask you a couple more questions, and we'll switch over to fixed ops. So,
sure. Yeah.
Can you tell us how fixed ops can keep your business recession proof?
Yeah. Fixed ops is essentially helps to keep your business recession proof, because people are constantly having to use that during, no matter what the economic state of the world is, people have to maintain their vehicles. So people are maintaining their vehicles whether economic times are high or low. Even if economic times are low, then fixed ops and having a very robust fixed ops department, that means people are holding on to their cars longer, not spending more money and buying more cars. So that makes maintenance even more important to them. Whenever it's great economic times, then people are still servicing their vehicles because they're taking trips, they're going places, or they just have the additional capital to be able to spend to properly maintain their vehicle. So fixed ops is like this continuum that if you really learn how to hone that aspect of the business, then no matter if the new vehicles go on strike, because the manufacturer goes on strike, no matter if there's a chip shortage, no matter what happens with manufacturing or anything like that, fixed ops is a constant. It's called fixed ops for a reason, because it doesn't have as many variables. So understanding that department and knowing how to create the best that you can from an efficiency perspective in your fixed ops department is how you recession proof your dealership.
And we heard that. Yeah, that's well said. Thank you for sharing that.
Well, and you have said that tech proficiency is a big miss, and paying attention to your effective labor rate is incredibly important. So why are these so often overlooked?
I think a part of it is just knowledge, education. Some people don't understand these particular metrics and how they impact your the efficiency of your organization. Effective labor rate. There's so many people that I've talked to, even dealers, that still don't really understand what this metric is, how it ultimately affects your team. And the thing that I like to equate it to is it's essentially the amount of money that you're retaining per hour sold. So when you think about it kind of like that, it's all about something like dispatching. One of the things at the dealership one of the previous dealerships that I was at, I won't call out any particular dealerships, but they had a very skilled technician, almost a master tech, who was doing state inspections and oil changes. And when I went in and I evaluated that dealership, they were losing $5 for every hour that this guy done an oil change and they were losing about $12 every time you sold a state inspection. So your hourly rate that you were paying this guy was more
Oh my
than
gosh.
what you were even charging the customer for that. So understanding that's what drove your effective labor rate down. So being able to dispatch jobs accordingly to make sure that you have a qualified technician, but you aren't paying so much money, but for someone to do that job. That's how you retain more of the money that you're charging per hour. That's how you retain more of it and ultimately keep more profit in the dealership, and ultimately discounting. Discounting parts, discounting services. The dealership that I'm at now, everybody knows everybody. It's a super small town. So if you're discounting your labor rate via its internal or otherwise, then you can cause yourself money. And then I'll close with tech proficiency. That's all about ensuring that the people that you have there are actually working, because maximizing your throughput is how you get more. Because in service, what you're really selling is time.
Yep.
You're selling time.
That's it.
So if you understand that you're selling time, then you want to monitor your guys on how much time that I can actually push through the shop. So I have to make sure that my guys are working. If they clocked 40 hours, they were on the clock for 40 hours, but they only flagged 20 hours. Well, what were you doing with the other 20? And do I have a bunch of ROs, just kind of sitting out there in my HRO list? So understanding that you're selling time, and that's the key metric that you have to watch. That tech proficiency is so important.
Yeah, that's there's some life lessons in that too. That and that is that it's never about how much you make; it's how much you keep.
You keep, yes, 100%.
I had to learn some of those lessons in life too. Yeah, I want more and more and more, and then your level of debt rises to your level of income, and you don't really get it until you get it, right? Anyway,
I definitely did as well. Yes, sir.
Yeah, well said. I love that analogy. That's good.
Mhm.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, we've had a great conversation today.
Yes.
Chris. Are there any questions we didn't ask you that you wish we had?
No, I think that you guys covered it quite a bit. I love that we got to touch on the emotional piece. And maybe one question would be, if you were to take on a new service department, or if there were any service directors or people in fixed ops that were looking at this, and there were a few things that they needed to check to make sure that they were operating in maximum efficiency, what are a few of the metrics that you would encourage them to dive into? I think that may be something good for the people. I don't know what you guys think about that.
Yeah,
I think.
let us know.
Yeah.
I would say that a few of the key things is, one, watching your door rate to see that if you're competitive, but you're properly priced, because there may be room for an increase. Two is getting your advisors, making sure that they're upselling on the drive based upon time and mileage, and not just waiting on a technician to recommend things.
That's right.
I would say making sure that your technicians are asking proper questions on the drive. Something as simple as, is there anything else that you would like for us to check out while you're here on this particular concern? So making sure that they're asking the proper questions. And then when it comes to the technician, if you do have a tool like Xtime, understanding what your media utilization rate is, and setting standards for the fixed ops department. What percentage of your ROs has media, pictures or videos attached to the RO, to make it easier for the advisor to sell and to actually be able to show to your consumer. And then doing service training, making sure that have you ever had your service advisor have to present an RO to you, based upon cost, correction, and concern, and overcoming objections. Service people, they talk to more customers than anybody in the dealership, but they're oftentimes the least trained. So what have we done to teach our advisors people skills, overcoming objections, those things? So really train your technicians. And I would say that those are some of the key pillars to success.
All the above. Boy, we could go another hour on just what you said at the very end, because that is like critical. It's every one of those things. Technician, recommendations, video versus words, understanding. Just be a human being and treat the people like you want to be treated. Answer their questions and explain to them what's going on. If you got a video that does it, that's great. If you don't, make sure you're competitive with your market, not only your immediate, like a Chevy versus a Chevy, but really all the independents that surround your franchise. You need to make sure you don't have to be the cheapest. You just have to be competitive, right? Great stuff. Great stuff, Chris. Well said. Man, we went through this hour fast. So I got to say, Chris Singleton, managing partner, Mike Cherry Auto Group, thank you so much. We're humbled, honored, and grateful that you came on our show today and shared the things that you did. Very impactful, not just about business, but life skills, leadership skills, what it takes to go from here to there and what it takes to keep what you have and keep moving forward. Thank you so much. Another successful wrap of WTF, and that's what the fix stops to all of you. When you see Mike come out, Chris come out, make sure you like him, you love him, you share him, you engage with him and make comments. And phenomenal individual. Thank you so much, Chris.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you guys so much for having me.